Welcome to the Be Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Sky Bradshaw, and today we're exploring the natural rhythms of inner growth through the lens of cycles of change. What it means to honor the seasons of the soul, the blooming, the pausing, the letting go. We live in a world that often rewards constant doing, but true transformation asks for something slower, quieter, and more honest. In this episode, we'll reflect on how to stop pushing for perpetual progress and start listening for the wisdom that lives in timing, rest, and surrender. In our Skylight segment, I'll be joined by Katie Boulton, a certified hypnotist, esthetician, and longtime friend and student. Katie's own healing path began in her early 20s when she decided to stop being the victim of her story and instead become its author. With insight shaped by both science and soul, Katie brings her lived experience and intuitive guidance into a conversation about self-trust, divine timing, and seeing ourselves with fresh eyes. Whether you're in a season of clarity or confusion, growth or quiet reflection, this episode invites you to trust where you are and remember that your soul knows the way. But before we dive into the Unclouded Heart segment for spiritual messages of wisdom, let's invite ourselves to become present in this moment within our body, mind, and energy. Take a moment to invite yourself to take some deep and cleansing breaths. In through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, invite your mind, body, and energy to relax, 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 relax. Relax, 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 relax. Relax, 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 relax. And as we move into this space of complete relaxation, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe, so we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good, and the highest and best good of all involved. Cycles of change, honoring spiritual seasons. There will be seasons when everything feels alive, your ideas, your energy, your heart. And there will be seasons when things go quiet, when growth happens underground, when the answers aren't clear, and your spirit asks for stillness instead of striving. Both are sacred. We're conditioned to chase the seasons that look productive, but nature doesn't bloom all year long, and neither do we. Growth isn't always about loud, visible progress. Sometimes it's about deepening, softening, releasing. That too is forward motion. That too is becoming. You are not behind because you're resting. You're not broken because something is falling away. You are not less worthy because your soul is asking for pause. The rhythm of becoming includes stillness. It's the space between the beats that gives the heartbeat its tempo. Divine timing is a rhythm that is something older and wiser than the clock or the calendar can measure. It is the nature of energy, the organic pace of authenticity. There is medicine in every season: clarity in spring, fire in summer, release in fall, stillness in winter. Your calling is not to rush from one to the next. Your invitation is to listen, to notice what your spirit is asking for, and to honor it, even when the world around you says, go, go, go. Sometimes transformation looks like shedding. Sometimes it looks like not knowing. And sometimes it looks like sitting in the in between long enough to hear your own voice again. So, wherever you are today, blooming, resting, unraveling, trust that you are exactly where you need to be. Trust that your timing is divine. And trust that no season is wasted when you meet it with presence. You don't have to force a breakthrough. You don't have to rush your healing. Just stay close to yourself. Stay curious. Stay open. Because your soul knows the way. And when you honor your season, you honor your becoming.
This episode of Be Your Soul is brought to you by Tarot by Sky, your home away from home for intuitive tarot, energy healing, and spiritual growth. Whether you're seeking clarity through a tarot reading, deep healing with an energy session, or powerful tools to align your energy, Sky Bradshaw offers a range of services designed to support your journey. Looking to deepen your spiritual practice? Sky's classes and courses help you tap into your intuition, understand your energetic boundaries, and manifest with purpose. Plus, with exclusive packages and subscriptions, you can receive ongoing guidance whenever you need it. Step into your power with Tarot by Sky, because it's your future. Visit Tarot by Sky to book a session, explore offerings, and start your journey toward alignment today.
In this episode, I'm joined by Katie Boulton, certified hypnotist, esthetician, and a soul I've had the honor of knowing since she was a teen. It was then when I gave Katie her first intuitive reading, and it's been a gift to witness her journey of becoming through seasons of unraveling, reclaiming, and rising. With the bachelor's in psychology, Katie has always been drawn to the why beneath the surface, whether it's our thoughts, behaviors, or breakouts. Through hypnosis and beauty work, she helps people move through resistance, feel more at home in their skin, and actually enjoy the process of change. Her style is intuitive and direct, helping clients break old patterns and reconnect with parts of themselves they've long ignored. Katie, thank you so much for being here and for always showing up with such an authentic reflection and warm-hearted depth. I'm so glad our listeners get to experience your energy and the insight that you have through this conversation. So welcome.
Thank you, Sky. This is such a special moment for me. I will never forget the first reading I had with you when I was just a teenager. You have been a steady force in my life. And so this is, again, just a very special moment for me. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I'm so grateful that we get to work in this way together. So today we're talking about seasons of change and the way that those things move through our life. And, oftentimes we're always wanting to be in harvest. We're always wanting, the reap the rewards of the work that we've done, when truly there are different cycles that we go through that can be, need of rest or inner reflection or different things. And we're often told to listen to ourselves, but that can be tricky when there's lots of noise around, whether it's inner noise or outer noise. So for you, thinking of those seasons of change and how things, aren't always one constant temperature, so to say, in our life, what helps your true voice come through beneath the expectations and the fears or habits?
Yeah, so I'm going to approach this with a hypnotic brain science perspective here from what I've learned from being a hypnotist. So I learned about this from a woman named Melissa Tiers. I've taken several classes with her. She is one of the best hypnotists. She's in New York City, and she talks a lot about the unconscious mind and the way that it processes. And that's that, a lot of times people say, I'm going to go with my gut feeling, or I'm going to trust my intuition. And that can be really tricky based on how the unconscious mind processes, because it's very biased. it's constantly pulling from our history, our upbringing, our past experiences. And we're not really consciously aware that it's doing it. Most of our mental processing is outside of our conscious awareness. And it's also very biased when it comes to people. And so, I'll give you an example. You meet somebody and they make a facial expression, very subtle even, and it reminds you of someone from your past. And so your gut feeling about that person that you think is about them is actually about you. So I'm not saying you can't trust your gut or you can't trust your intuition, but it's always like pay attention to it. So how do you know when you can trust it? Well, it helps like if you're more self-aware, and it also helps with more information that you have, more data. So I'll give you another example. I've been an esthetician for almost 10 years, and I'll be trying to decide like what treatment to do on this client. And because of my experience and the information and the data I've had, I know I can probably trust my gut there and listen to my real voice there. But again, if you're just meeting someone for the first time, you don't have a lot of information. You don't really, so I always say just rethink it if you don't have a lot of information. So I think again, overall, to answer your question, self-awareness and the more information that you have and experience, it's obviously a process. You can't be perfect. So yeah, I did approach that with more of a perspective of our unconscious mind, but that was what I would recommend.
It's so true because, one of the things that I teach from the base, and, I've given it to you, I give it to everyone. It's actually on the YouTube page that people can find, is the 3-5s meditation. And that meditation is that checking in. If we tune in and we can tell the difference between our thoughts and our energy, our intuition and our emotions, then when those feelings rise up, we know who, so to say, what part of ourself is speaking. And the intuition speaks in nudges and urges to go in particular directions, where the monkey mind speaks in a narrative. And so when we can really know ourselves in that way and create a trust of the self, then it allows for us to tune in and know when it's more likely coming from those deeper pattern energies or emotions, compared to that sense of, oh wait, this is an intuitive nudge, and then I always say pause, reflect, reconnect, because even when it's the intuition, we really want to make sure that we're hearing the full story, or hearing the full intuition in that.
Exactly.
And I think, we live in a world that celebrates blooming and productivity. Progress and what you're producing gets a high emphasis in a lot of ways, but there are seasons of rest and pause and letting go. So how do you navigate like the pressure of always doing or becoming versus, when your soul asks for stillness, or when you need to release something in that way? How do you keep guilt and, the shoulda, woulda, couldas from creeping in, and just allow yourself to simply be more?
This is something I am still learning. I think all of us struggle with
Right.
this. I deal with it every single day. And I love the whole concept because slowing down is absolutely essential. I see it this way: being busy, being successful, being productive, it's dopamine. It's fun to be successful. It's fun to be busy. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, it gets a little addicting. And it's also most of the time, or a lot of the time, a distraction, or we're running from something, or we don't want to feel. I know if I'm being productive, I'll use that as a way to like not do something else. I'm like, if I'm still being productive, it's fine that I haven't done this thing that I've been meaning to do for months. But anyway, a technique that I teach my clients and something that I try and do for myself, it's called drop through it. And so you ask yourself, okay, what is this really? What am I so afraid of happening if I do slow down? where did I learn that productivity is better than rest? Or where did I learn that doing is better than doing nothing? And so you just kind of drop through that emotion and just stop in that moment where you're really going and just close your eyes and say, what is this really? And I think that can be super powerful.
Mm-hmm. And, the technique similar to that I teach is called core truthing. And when we core truth, then we keep asking ourselves questions till we get under the
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
And, I always think, we're really good as humans being distracted by the leaves. And sometimes we might see the branches, very rarely are we in the trunk. But getting to the root is really, if we have healthy roots, then healthy everything else comes into the tree. And so it's that sort of like going underneath it, seeing what's showing up beyond. How do we create that space to really recognize? And technically, all are important: the roots, the trunk, the limbs, and the leaves, and then the fruit are all important. But everything in balance and everything in the right alignments. And so I think that drop into it is is really a great valuable tool.
Yes, I love that one. That is my go-to. And it's something that exact same thing you were talking about. So yeah.
Mhm. Sometimes we outgrow things though, and we see one way of doing things worked for us. And then as we evolve and grow and learn and amplify, we realize we've outgrown that technique. And I'm a big fan of not having to deem something as bad in order to know I want better. And so really recognizing just because I outgrew it doesn't mean that it didn't bring purpose to my life, or that didn't have some value to me, but now it's no longer mine in those spaces. Can you share a moment where you had that open up to a new perspective sort of vision and allowed yourself to shift from, just because I always have doesn't mean I always need to perspective when it comes to your growth and your learning and that season of realizing different aspects of things?
Sure. So I think of the fact that when I was in my early 20s, I had my first kind of spiritual epiphany and realized that I could find God in my own way. And I think everybody has their own God in whatever way works for them. And that's what I believe. And so with that, it was such a great feeling. I was like, I found God in my own way. It doesn't have to be this one way that I always thought it had to be. And it felt so beautiful. And I had that loving source inside of me that was just growing, and I got better. The problem with it was that I thought that everybody had to do it my way. Like everyone had to buy goddess cards and use their sage and light candles. I'm still guilty of this. And it's not that I have outgrown that necessarily. Absolutely not. I still need my sage. I still need my goddess cards. However, as I've been learning more about hypnosis, I've realized oh my goodness, we can learn how to change our own brain. And I've gotten really into just the brain science of, self-directed neuroplasticity. And it's not me, it's my brain making a mistake. Just learning how to hypnotize yourself. And so I wouldn't say I've outgrown my spiritual by any means. However, I've been introduced to this additional perspective. And I also have to check myself, not everybody's going to understand this. Not everybody is going to want to change. And to be completely honest, we really don't know anything for certain.
Right.
I mean, we're kind of making this all up, right? I mean, that sounds kind of bad, but we don't know anything. So I'm like, you know what? You do you. That's your story. It doesn't have to be with, again, the goddess cards. It doesn't even have to be with hypnosis. Just kind of separating yourself, saying, this is my story. This is what worked for me. And I'm going to let you do what works for you.
And I think, that integration, that shifting and changing, the understanding that while this method might work for some, it's not going to work for all. And that might work for you, but it's not going to work for me. Like how we see not only giving others permission, but like being curious and inquisitive about how other people do things, and then having the power within ourselves to be able to say, and I see that, but I don't resonate with it, so I don't have to integrate that. And it's the kind of like take what works, leave what doesn't, and allow for growth in those ways. And when we get to that space, I always am excited when people say we don't know anything, because like
it's so true. Thank you.
because to me, that's an understanding, is like, me as a human on the planet with all my experience and all my connections and all the work that I've done, is a thimbleful of all that could be possible of knowledge and understanding. And it all comes from that way that the brain works. How I see something and how you see something can be totally different. We can see the same thing, so to say, and it looks different because we are filtering it through our own mind and experience and connections. And so I think it's that sort of like Buddhist mentality. Every morning you're born again with fresh eyes to see things in new ways. And if we give ourselves permission for that, it's a really beautiful way to live life.
Yes, agreed.
So I ask every guest 3 questions. And the first one is, what do you believe it means to be your soul?
When I hear be your soul, the first thing that comes to mind is that universal idea about being in a place of love versus fear. And my personal definition of what love is to be at peace with myself and to live with intention of I'm going to be intentionally finding ways to be more at peace with myself, whether that means looking at what I think makes me fundamentally flawed or unlovable, all of my imperfections, and saying, actually, that's what makes me unique. That's what makes me beautiful. And so when I think be your soul, I think of living from that place of love. And for me, love is peace with myself.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
So, what's one self care practice that you do every day to help fuel your energy?
I do have one of those jobs, like many of us, where it's very fast paced and I'm seeing client after client and I'm talking a lot throughout the day, which I absolutely love. I love my clients. They're so much fun. They teach me so much. We laugh, we have a blast. However, when I get off work, I do not want to talk to anybody for at least an hour, maybe 2. And so what I do when I get off work is I put in my headphones, I bring up my Spotify daily mix, and I go to the woods. So I go to the park across from my street, and the only thing that is surrounding me are these trees and movement and music. And it's so funny because people will be like, can I join you for your walk? And I'm like, no, sorry. Like, this is if it's after work, probably no, I love you. But that is my time where I don't have to be anything for anybody. It is absolutely essential.
I love that. I love that. So, speaking along those lines, how do you know when you feel centered and balanced in your life?
I know I'm most centered and balanced, honestly, when I'm saying no a lot, because, sometimes we're so quick to impulsively just say, oh, that sounds fun. I'm going to say yes, or just to kind of get it done. I've really gotten good at that pause thing you were talking about. Just saying, okay, wait a second. Let me look at my calendar. Am I going to have energy for that day? Am I going to have space for that? So I know that I'm definitely centered and balanced when I'm saying no a lot. And also, a big one that has happened a lot recently is when I'm listening to my body. And what does that mean? Well, strength training is really big right now. Everyone's lifting weights and like getting really fit. And I've been really trying to stick to a habit of doing strength training. But one morning a few weeks ago, like I started doing it and my body was just really sore, and it was still sore from the workout like the day before. And I just felt this feeling like it actually just needs to stretch or do yoga, like something kind of simple today. And I really wanted to just kind of push through it, but I was like, you know what? Actually, let's stretch, let's do yoga. And then in a few days, I was fine to get back to it. So people say, listen to your body. Well, yeah, I mean, like actually really listen to it. Like if it's saying no, if it's saying, it needs to just stretch, do it. You'll still keep the habit. Don't worry.
Mhm.
So trusting yourself comes into that too. So overall, I know I'm centered and balanced when I am saying no a lot and when I am actually listening to my body.
Yeah. And that goes back to that, self-trust and knowing the parts of the self, because a lot of times, and it's those, it fits into the seasons that we talk about, because if you would have in that moment been like, no, I'm supposed to be doing this workout, I said this was what I was
Exactly.
doing, then, that the monkey mind would have taken over and kind of pushed through something. And it's not saying that some things we don't need to really motivate ourselves and say like, okay, I'm avoiding this for a reason, I need to push through it. But if we know our body and we know its voice and we know its needs and we've created a healthy relationship with it, then we can say, oh, wait, I can listen to you. I can understand you. And I know you're really asking for something that you need. You're not, being lazy or whatever the thing is that we might, like
Yeah.
tell ourselves about it.
Yeah. I think that's like a big form of respect to yourself is
Mhm.
to listen. So,
Mhm.
yeah, we need to learn how to listen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm always a fan of saying, like, you know, create relationships with your physical self, with your energy self, with your emotional self, create relationships with your spirituality, with your work practice. Like if we look at everything as like healthy relationship and we go like, what do I believe is present in a healthy relationship? Well, there's attentiveness and there's listening and there's balance and there's giving and receiving. And if we can look at that sort of concept of, how we relate to things and create healthy relations between things, I think it can really, really help us amplify our lives and our being centered and balanced as well.
Yes, I love that perspective. I think that makes it more simple.
Mm-hmm.
Just relating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Do you want to shout out your website and if you have any offerings coming up?
Yes. So my website is katiebolton.com. That's Katie Boulton, B as in boy, Oulton.com. My Instagram handle is Katie, Katie _ BEEX3. And my email is katie@katiebolton.com. I am hosting a lunch and learn in August with a few other people. That date is still TBD. But yeah, you can book an appointment on my website or follow me on Instagram. That's the best way to get more information.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I feel really grateful. This was a beautiful conversation and
Yes.
you're it was so great to have you on. And
Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you, dear listeners, for joining us in this conversation about honoring your spiritual seasons through blooming, resting, releasing, and everything in between. Your presence here is a reminder that growth doesn't have to be loud to be real. Sometimes the most sacred transformations happen in the quiet, in the pause, and in the trust that your timing is divine. When you choose to honor where you are, not where you think you should be, you create space for grace, depth, and renewal. And in doing so, you give others permission to slow down and listen to their own rhythm. We're so grateful for you, for tuning in, for trusting your own pace, and for walking this path with heart and awareness. Keep listening, keep softening, and most of all, keep trusting the season you're in.
This episode of Be Your Soul is brought to you by Little Energies, a beautiful collection of chakra-aligned tools designed to help children connect with their emotions, energy, and intuition. Created by Sky Bradshaw, Little Energies makes self-awareness fun and accessible through books, journals, and oracle cards that empower kids to understand their own energy in a simple, engaging way. These tools provide a gentle, supportive way to introduce mindfulness, emotional balance, and energetic boundaries to the little ones in your life. With the Little Energies Bundle Pack, kids can explore their inner world with confidence and curiosity. Give the gift of self-awareness and energetic wellness. Visit littleenergies.com to explore the full collection and bring balance to the next generation.
In this segment, I offer tools and guidance I have been helpful in my practice, and maybe you will too. You've probably felt it, the urge to move and the pull to stop, the sense that something is shifting inside, even if you can't name it. These aren't random moods. They're part of your natural cycle. This practice is here to help you recognize what season your soul is in and to give it what it needs. Ignoring our timing only creates tension. It disconnects us from our inner rhythm and asks us to push when our soul is asking us to pause. But when we choose to honor our timing, gently, without judgment, we invite in a different kind of flow, one that's rooted in trust instead of urgency, one that makes space for alignment, healing, and a quieter kind of clarity, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself because it already knows it's true. So let's get connected as we reflect on all our seasons. Energetically, this work reconnects you with your natural flow. It softens resistance and restores trust. You don't have to force clarity or growth. You just need to be in relationship with your own timing. In this practice, I'll guide you through the 4 inner seasons, spring, summer, fall, and winter, as the energies we move through, not just dates on a calendar. For each one, we'll explore its purpose, how to intuitively listen to it, and I'll offer a journaling prompt to help you hear what your true self is saying right now. No matter where you are or what you're carrying, this is a space to pause, reflect, and reconnect. So let's begin. To get the most out of this practice, find a quiet space where you can be with yourself without distractions. Bring your trusty notebook or journal, something to write with, and give yourself about 15 to 20 minutes of deserved, uninterrupted time. This is your moment to pause, breathe, and tune in. Just you and whatever is ready to rise. Let's listen for the spring within, the early stirrings of growth, curiosity, and a gentle invitation to try again. Spring brings an invitation of new beginnings. Fresh thoughts rise, and a quiet yes might form within you. The energy is full of life, but it doesn't shout. It arrives softly, with small stirrings, emerging clarity, and the courage to create something new. But even gentle beginnings can come with doubt or hesitation, and starting fresh can feel more vulnerable than we expect. So how do we move through the doubt and shift into trust? We begin by noticing, by becoming aware of what's waking up within us and listening without rushing. That's how we build trust, with presence and practice. Let's explore that with a few reflective questions and a journal prompt to guide your connection. Ask yourself, what in me is waking up? What wants to grow, even if it's just a whisper right now? And here's your journaling prompt. What am I ready to begin gently, imperfectly, and with curiosity? How can I support this tender beginning? Let's feel into the energy of summer, that expansive place where clarity rises and momentum builds. Summer is the season of action and opening. It's when our energy rises, our clarity sharpens, and we often feel ready to be seen. Summer invites us to take up space, to step forward, and to follow through on the seeds we've planted. But that visibility can bring up old fears. We might question our readiness or feel pressure to perform rather than simply show up as we are. So, how do we stay aligned in our action and keep our energy rooted in truth? We learn to move from intention, not urgency, to show up because we are called, not because we feel like we have to. And we keep checking in with ourselves along the way. Let's take a moment to reflect and connect with the summer energy within us. Ask yourself, where am I being called to show up more fully? Am I using my energy in ways that feel aligned with who I really am? And here's your journaling prompt. What parts of me are asking to be seen right now? What do I need to feel safe, steady, and supported in that visibility? Next, let's explore the wisdom of fall, that quiet turning point when shedding becomes a form of self-trust. Fall is the season of release. It reminds us that letting go is not failure. It's a sacred part of the cycle. This season shows up when we've outgrown something, when we need space to breathe, or when something we've carried has run its course. But letting go can feel disorienting. Even when we know it's time, the space it leaves behind can feel tender and even painful. So, how do we honor the falling away without rushing to fill the emptiness? We practice gratitude. We bless what's leaving. And we trust that in clearing space, we make room for something more aligned to arrive. Let's check in with the part of you that may be in a season of shedding. Ask yourself, what am I holding on to that's ready to fall away? Where am I making space, even if I don't yet know what will take its place? And here's your journaling prompt. What am I ready to release with love and without judgment? What can I thank it for before I let it go? And finally, let's honor the energy of winter, that sacred space where doing less allows you to feel more. Winter energy is quiet, deep, and often misunderstood. It's the season of stillness, of inner reflection, and of sacred integration. This is when your soul gathers strength below the surface, when transformation happens not in action, but in rest. Stillness can feel uncomfortable. In a world that pushes constant productivity, winter can feel like nothing is happening. But in truth, everything is deepening. So, how do we trust the work happening beneath the surface? We learn to listen without demanding answers. We soften into presence. And we remember that rest is not retreat, it's restoration. Let's tune in to what your winter season might be asking of you. Ask yourself, what is asking to be felt rather than fixed? What am I learning in the quiet? And here's your journaling prompt. What wants to be heard in my stillness? How can I honor this pause without rushing it? Wherever you find yourself today, whether you're rising into something new, stretching into visibility, releasing what no longer fits, or simply resting, you are in a sacred season. And these seasons aren't measured by dates or calendars. They move with the rhythm of your soul. You may feel the quiet of winter in one part of your life and the bloom of summer in another. It's not about choosing the right season. It's about noticing the one that's asking to be honored right now. When we stop resisting our natural pace, we begin to soften into trust. When we listen instead of push, healing begins to unfold, not all at once, but in gentle, meaningful ways. So, whatever this practice stirred in you, meet it with kindness. Offer yourself compassion, not critique, gratitude, not judgment. You don't need to be anywhere other than where you are. You don't need to rush the unfolding. There is no final destination, only a deeper return to yourself, season after season. So take a breath. Thank yourself for showing up. And remember, your rhythm is sacred. Your timing is wise. Your becoming is already underway. Keep showing up, keep checking in, and above all, keep trusting the wisdom of your own becoming. May you be well, may you find truth, may you be whole, and may you feel blessed. And may you always be your soul.
If this practice stirred something in you, maybe a quiet recognition, a softening, or just the sense that you want to go deeper, we invite you to explore the Be Your Soul classroom. It's a sacred space filled with intentional teachings, energy tools, and guided practices designed to support your growth and help you stay rooted in your authentic self. You can find the classroom along with all of our podcast episodes, guest information, and everything Be Your Soul at www.beyoursoul.org. When you're ready to expand this journey beyond the episode, we'll be there.